Today we're discussing the 5 greatest college players in the history of collegiate basketball.
Move like Will Chamberlain, I'm the GOAT. This the 7 More podcast show. Yeah.
And starting off this list at number 5 is the Skywalker, the shortest player to make this list. David Thompson was a 6'4" guard who could absolutely light it up on any given night. He showed what it was like for a slashing guard who relies on his athleticism to come in the league and shoot efficiently in the early 70s without a three-point line, known for junk defenses clogging the lane, but that did not stop David Thompson from shooting 57% from the field and averaging 25 a game as a freshman, leading his team to a 27-0 record, but they weren't able to win a championship that year, even though they went undefeated because they were banned from the NCAA tournament, and they didn't have a chance to compete with a 30-0 champion UCLA Bruins. Nonetheless, David Thompson still stood out as the most athletic player in college basketball during that time, as legend has it that you could put money on the top of the backboard and David Thompson could reach up and grab exact change because his hang time in the air was just so ridiculous. And by the time he comes running back in his sophomore year, they're finally allowed to participate in the NCAA tournament, and they beat UCLA in the Final Four, where David Thompson averages 26 a game that season, and they go 30-1. So in David Thompson's first 58 games, he wins 57 of them, similar to a Bill Walton type run, or just an incredible start to his season. Sadly, he was only able to capture one championship because his freshman year's opportunity was taken away from him. And his junior year, NC State had 6 losses, and they weren't able to match the production and the kind of winning basketball they had his first 2 years to catch the same kind of magic. But David Thompson averaged 30-8 and won National Player of the Year in his 3rd season. So he showed that he can win a National Player of the Year, win a national championship on an absolute dominant squad where he was the clear-cut guy and paved the way for someone like Michael Jordan, if you ever heard of him, to come into the spotlight and show up and show out as a slashing guard. John Wooden was a legendary, magnificent coach, and coming in number 4, we have one of his superstar students in Bill Walton. Bill Walton was the guy on that squad. Now picture the 1960s Boston Celtics and how they were clearly led by Bill Russell, who everything ran through him on defense, and Bill Russell was able to get his teammates involved in offense. But Bill Russell played for an outstanding dynasty, but he was surrounded by Hall of Fame talent. His team was loaded, and Bill Russell was a clear-cut guy on that team. Well, that's Bill Walton with UCLA. An absolutely stacked roster that Bill Walton was clearly at the top of the totem pole, and everybody knew that he was the man on that team. And he was able to play with future NBAers like Marquise Johnson and Jamal Wilkes. And they were so loaded, but Bill Walton was able to keep them together with the talent along with John Wooden to go 60-0 in his first 2 seasons. They ran through. It was basically a cakewalk. Bill Walton was his first 2 seasons of eligibility were perfect. He won 60 straight games, 2 National Players of the Years, and dominated in both tournaments. And then you get to his 3rd year by that point, and that's when he finally gets his struggles because NC State is now allowed into the NCAA tournament, and David Thompson does his thing. But David Thompson didn't do his thing quite like Bill Walton as consistently, as Bill Walton averaged 20 points, 16 rebounds on 65% shooting for his career. While in the games that assists were counted, he averaged 5.5 assists a game with the center spot, which shows how gifted he was of a passer. So you have a man who's taking on a lot of responsibility, anchoring an all-time great team on defense, anchoring a team with his passing ability, and also clearing the boards, doing everything you could ask for, everything John Wooden couldn't imagine in Bill Walton. He delivered and won 2 Player of the Years and had 2 perfect seasons in college basketball, and those 2 seasons really cement his spot on this list as one of the all-time college greats. And coming in number 3 on this list, we have Oscar Robertson, the only player to not win a championship who we've mentioned so far, or who we will mention at all. But his individual accolades speak for himself. And when you come with Oscar Robertson, you have those cases in basketball where you hear about him where a player is not as tall as they want to be in high school and they have to focus on their guard skills. But then all of a sudden they grow and they have all these skills that nobody their size has, which gives them a huge edge in competitive basketball. Well, that's what happened with Oscar Robertson. He was a 5'8" point guard who was completely dedicated to the fundamentals of basketball, making sure he had all of his guard skills down pat, knew how to get his teammates involved, hit a pull-up jumper, and be able to kind of read the defense like a quarterback and be able to pick it apart. Then he grows to 6'5", which is unprecedented for point guards at the time, and he becomes a complete matchup nightmare because they can't put guys too small because he knows how to post them up and score them with ease, and you can't put two guys too big because he's too quick with his handle and is too savvy with the basketball to let someone as his size be able to contain him. And as soon as he gets to college basketball, he's just a complete matchup nightmare, breaking the scoring record in his sophomore season, the first year he was eligible, averaging 35 points a game on 57% shooting, which is unprecedented numbers at the time. You have Wilt Chamberlain averaging 30 a game when he came into the league or close to it, but he was not even shooting 50% from the field some seasons because college basketball was so clunky and clustered that it was hard to be efficient. But Oscar Robertson broke those barriers and showed what position basketball could look like, and there was just no stopping a 6'5" player who would go coast to coast, and you can't double team him or triple team him because that man was the best playmaker in history up until that point. And so he just created so many problems that he took Cincinnati from being a good program to a complete powerhouse. Yes, he didn't capture a championship, but he went to back-to-back Final Fours, and he laid the foundation for a program that would win championships after he left, and he really put Cincinnati basketball on the map. And even without capturing a ring, he still deserves credit for 3 straight Player of the Years and leaving college basketball with a new idea, a new concept of positionless basketball, and being the all-time leading scorer. Oscar Robertson left an incredible individual legacy even without winning a championship. It almost feels disrespectful, but coming in at number 2 on this list, we have Bill Russell. A nobody in high school. Not a single person cared to know who Bill Russell was in high school. But he was discovered by playing bench warmer minutes, coming at the end of a game when the game was over. USF discovered him. He didn't do anything special, but you just saw how high he jumped and how tall he was. And San Francisco knew they had to have him. And he comes onto campus, can barely make a layup, but he's 6'9", almost 6'10", and can jump out the gym, and has a work ethic and a determination to increase his basketball IQ like no other. Before then, defenders were held in a box. You play the man, you try to make him hit a jump shot over, you try to make him shoot a contested jump shot. That's it. But Bill Russell defied that. He even defied his own coach, his wishes, but the coach had to eat crow after seeing what blocking shots could do. But Bill Russell invented jumping the block shots. Like, he's such like a pioneer. You wonder where people thought of to jump to swat shots rather than playing conservative defense. It's from Bill Russell, a complete game wrecker who came in the league and just swatted everything and completely owned all the real estate near the rim. And that led to 55 straight wins for University of San Francisco, a program that was not winning championships until Bill Russell got there, averaging 20 and 20, shooting above 50% from the field. Someone who's known for being offensively challenged in the NBA, that wasn't the case in college. The man was able to average 20 points a game, shooting 54% from the field one season, and showed that he was just too athletic and too dedicated to his game so anything can come in his way. And he was so dedicated to his craft that he was coming up with signature moves on defense. That's the kind of player he was. Imagine if Kobe Bryant, the kind of work ethic he had, he was focused on in the lab, getting film, and making sure he knew what offense players were going to do, and inventing defensive signature moves. That was Bill Russell. His defense was just on a different level, and he's the greatest defender in college history and an elite offensive player as well. So that's what puts him at number 2 on this list. The fact that he didn't win 3 straight championships and have quite the record of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is what makes Bill Russell number 2 on this list. But it shouldn't be looked over the fact that the man was nothing in high school and came into college and just absolutely owned the sport for 3 years. There are only 5 spots on this list, so we gotta have an honorable mention for the all-time greats who weren't able to quite make the cut for the top 5 college players of all time. One of the first names that comes to mind is Pistol Pete Maravich, the all-time leading scorer in college basketball history, an absolute flamethrower, put up over 40 a game every single season, but the man couldn't win. He obviously didn't have the kind of help that a lot of people on this list had, but you got to at least make the tournament and show something in the postseason, in my eyes, for me to put you on this list. So I wasn't able to put him on here. And then another guy who comes to mind who's an extreme talent is Wilt Chamberlain, a man that really wasn't able to find his niche in college basketball because at this point, he's young, he's arrogant. I mean, as talented he was, he wanted to carry the load for his team and show that he could be the guy and win a championship. And teams took advantage of that, and they were able to load up, like, even put 5 people on him, and he was so determined to score that got in his head, and he ended up leaving college basketball early just because it wasn't the environment for him. He didn't have the kind of teammates to take off pressure where he wanted to dominate solely by himself. So he wasn't able to win, so I couldn't put him on this list as well. And then you get to more current guys, they're going to be left off this list because not all of them were able to play 4 years like the guys. There's going to be a bias towards older players as they're able to put together 4-year careers because they were required to stay 4 years back then. And the fact that they have all this time to get used to college and really develop their whole career and resume gives them a huge edge. This is why a lot of the older players on this list and nobody current really makes the cut. And coming in on top of this list should come as no surprise here. You know who's left out this list. The New York City high school hoops phenom, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. A man who had everybody in the country wanted him to come to their school. The wildest expectations you could imagine, and he shattered every single one of them. Picture LeBron James coming into the NBA with the amount of pressure and hype and the expectations he had and how he was able to live up to it and become a Pantheon great. That was Kareem in high school. Nobody ever had that kind of media coverage coming in to college basketball. And Kareem delivered on every single ounce of hype you can imagine, making sure not a single UCLA fan nor critic was left disappointed. As soon as he stepped foot on the campus, he showed he was the best player in the country by the JV squad of UCLA beating the varsity squad, which never happened, by the way. But Kareem was simply too much of a force down low. A man who's 7'2", can move like no other big man could in that decade, can anchor the team on both sides of the ball, and had the veteran polish that you would expect from a big man who's been in the NBA for 10 years. And when you combine all of that, Kareem was just simply too much for anybody in college basketball to handle. In fact, it got so bad that they had to outlaw the dunk. Yes, one of the most exciting parts of basketball is jamming on somebody. The most efficient shot in basketball also, they had to ban it just because Kareem was simply too good at basketball. And this rule change came after his sophomore year where he averaged 29 and 15.5 boards on 67% shooting, showing what it's like to score elite and efficient level like nobody had before. And because the dunk was outlawed, obviously his numbers dropped because if you can't dunk the ball, it's going to be hard to make a layup than a dunk because dunk is just so efficient. All you have to do is just drop it in there and it's a bucket. But the man still averaged 26 and 15 for his entire career while going 88-2. Let that sink in. A man who completely dominated statistically with his efficiency and his ability to fill up the stat sheet while winning 88 of 90 games, 3 straight Player of the Years, 3 straight national championships. Yes, he played for the greatest college team of all time in the dynasty of UCLA, the greatest coach of all time, John Wooden. But when Kareem was a freshman and not allowed to play on the varsity, they went 18-8. And then as soon as he made that leap from JV to the varsity squad, they ran through the college basketball world like we've never seen it do before. And when you combine his resume and his talent, there really isn't an argument for anybody to be placed over him, as just the combination of what he was able to do while he was in college just shows the face of the greatest dynasty in college basketball history is the greatest college player of all time.